Hello and welcome to our show, Film Talk with AJ Dean. I'm AJ Dean, your host, and we have such an extraordinary special VIP guest tonight. We have Roberta Degnore. She is an American author, filmmaker, and psychologist. She's written such wonderful books as Until You See Me and Invisible Soft Return. That's just a few of her titles, a couple of her titles that she's written. She's an incredible writer and author. She's an artist. She's traveled the world far and wide on many adventures, and we're going to talk about her wonderful independent films and her wonderful books. Let's give a warm welcome. Hello, Roberta. Welcome, my love. How are you?
Hello, AJ. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you. It's wonderful to be here.
Oh, I was looking so forward to this, Roberta, because you're very popular and you have lived as an artist the life, such a cool life. Everybody has basically wanted to live the life you have. So let's go to the beginning a little bit. Go back a little bit to New York. You rented a loft in New York. Is this where it all started, or did it start before that?
It really started a little before that because in Detroit, which is a great place to be from, I was influenced by the civil rights movement, and even before that, I had my cousin Joe was an artist, and he would take me with him to jazz clubs and things I was practically a child, a young teenager. So living on the edge and kind of being never quite fitting in, the third generation, Italian immigrant family. And at that time, right, although it was okay, but there were still the names around, Guinea, WAP, whatever. So I knew I didn't, fit in. And then in Detroit, during the civil rights movement, I did that. I was active in that. And then when my mother found out that I came out, it was like, oops, time to leave, because I was getting thrown out. So that's when I went to New York for freedom, like so many other people, not only freedom to be, gay or whatever, but to be in this mecca of literature and art and freedom in a lot of ways. So that's what got me to New York.
Wonderful. Now, how did it feel being a part of the civil rights movement? I mean, you were right on the edge. This was the protests of the day. The whole country was in an uproar, and you were parading and speaking and representing for voices that needed to be heard. Tell us about how important that was for you, Roberta.
That was very important. At that time, I was going to Wayne State University in downtown Detroit, in what was called at that time the ghetto, right? And the inner city, the ghetto. And so it was easy to make friends with and be part of the, with people of color and whatever they were doing. We were all together in that. And in the psychology department, I was a young psychology department student. There was a woman who kind of got me involved with that, and she became, actually, this is not known, and I've not talked about this before. She was the first airplane hijacker ever in Detroit, because she wanted two Panthers released who had been arrested in exchange for some other prisoners. Woman, she is now deceased, but that was the first thing, and that was back, it must have been 1960 something, 66, 67. So with that kind of activism, different kind of than today's, just marches, where there is kind of no tangible end, we would, and I've said this before, I would help out with the Panthers I knew. There would be young men who had been arrested who needed to get out of Dodge, get out of Detroit quick. So I put them in the trunk of my father's car and drive them into Canada,
Wow.
to a safe house there.
Amazing.
So that,
Amazing. This is, basically you were rescuing them,
yeah,
and giving them a whole different environment so they could feel safe and comfortable. This is amazing, Roberta. Now, did you have any dangerous interactions with anybody, or was it just low key and you just drove there and it was all
that no, it was easy. Those trips were touch wood. Those were those were easy. It went okay. I, was a young white kid and a nice guy. I would borrow my father's Buick and a nice Buick and a nice car, And usually a friend would go with me shopping. Where are you going, girls? Oh, we're going to go shopping at the bakery. There was like an Italian area there in Windsor.
I love it. I love it.
It was great, but that was great. It was, tangible action. Today, sometimes you don't get that. We do, and I'm still active, but we do a march, we do a whatever, and we take our placards and signs and go home. So there's a difference, but that's what got me into that. That's the civil rights movement. In New York, it was different. It was, I got the loft on the Bowery, and the kind of activism fell out for a while in the early 70s and 80s then, or later in the 80s, really.
Okay, so I want to thank you for being there, for voices that needed to be heard, and for helping in any way that you could, Roberta. You're such a beautiful heart. And, I'm always for the underdog. I always have been. And I know that you will appreciate that, because I've been the underdog. I felt I have as well. We all have our own stories, but this isn't about me. This is about you. So let's talk about, you said that you came out to your mom and then you went to New York. So was it suggested by your parents, or did you say, hey mom, I'm going to go to New York? How did that come about?
Oh, yeah, it wasn't that civilized at all. It was not that civilized at all. She got an attorney to whom I had to go appear in front of me. Say, are these things true? Because I was seeing a professor at the university, and he said, if so, she's going to lose her job. And I thought the better part of valor was to just straight up lie. I said, absolutely not. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I went home, I packed my car, and I left the next day. So that was that. It's like, and I didn't speak to my family for like 2 years, and then things evened out after that.
Okay. Gee, you really had to, it's so sad that, hopefully it's better now. Do you think it's better now, Roberta?
For it depends. I mean, look at all the trans kids who are getting murdered, really murdered. And it's mostly trans people of color to this day here in New York, where you would think, oh, there's all the freedom and acceptance. No, it still happens. We've got, this movement that we all see that's going, it's not conservative, this fascistic authoritarian movement that's happening is affecting all of us. And as you said, we are all the other to someone. In somebody's eyes, each one of us is the other,
Yes, we are. And it's so true. And today, there needs to be more protection for trans all over the world, because there's even some countries that are way in the archaic history. They don't even, there's no respect. It's really wrong. A lot of things have to change. So what do you think, Roberta?
Oh, they will kill you. Are you kidding? In Iran and stuff, they will kill you if you're trans, even if you're just gay. That's another thing. This thing of how we look. If we break the binary or the imagery, and this is why Hollywood is so important too, and why it's important to change the image, or expand the imagery, to see more people of color on screen, to see more people who are physically challenged on screen, so that our eyes get used to it. And that's just a really informal way of saying, we're just animals, and we're set up in our neurological system to respond to things that are different from us, right? It's like, oh, is that animal going to come to eat me? Or, oh no, that's a friend. If we get used to seeing that, when we were evolving on the plains of Africa, that's what it is. And now, if we see someone not like us, the other, our first response is, fight or flight.
Yeah.
We're afraid of them. But if we see more of people who aren't like us, there's not that immediate kind of attack response or self-preservation response. So yeah, we need that. And this is how, I'm sorry, and this will lead into, we don't have to go into it now, but this is why I developed the course I did here at Fashion Institute in the expression and perception of gender in fashion. Because as we were saying, sexuality is not frivolous. You get killed for that. And fashion is not frivolous, because the way we look, as I was just saying, about how we perceive that other can get us killed. Guys who wear skinny jeans that are too tight, and men who are in a dress, women who look too butch, it'll get you killed.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, it
yeah.
has so much change still needs to occur. And I love that you wrote that course. I bet it's packed each semester. If I was there, I would take it. Um,
Good.
and I know,
Um,
and I love that you have the psychology background. You're a psychologist as well. This gives you such a great perspective, Roberta, with your filmmaking and in life in general. So I just want to thank you for being you, and for you're an absolute delight. You're one of my inspirations, Roberta, and I just want to say we love you so much.
oh, thank you. And you. It's been a great meeting you, and the others has been really transformative for me. And it truly has. And perhaps we'll talk about that, perhaps not. We'll see.
Okay, okay. So before we talk about your great films, your independent films, which I love, can we talk about a little bit about the Loft in New York? Now,
Ah,
you have some pictures at robertadegnore.com. Please check it out and go there and support Roberta. She's got wonderful links to and photos of, your life, right, Roberta?
mhm.
And
Yes,
you've got pictures of your loft there. It's a really cool, it's got wooden floors. It's up it's up on like the second or third floor, was it, Roberta?
second floor. Yeah,
Okay.
with a roof extension of the restaurant supply store underneath, so that I could open my back windows and crawl out and have this tar terrace in New York, this 20 by 22 tar terrace, where I used to grow marijuana plants in those plastic containers. It was great.
I
It
love
was it, it was a great luxury in the city. But in that loft, which was lovely, it was like what, 75 feet long, 25 feet wide. I mean, really just a long open space, 14-foot high tin ceilings, a classic old New York loft. Um, it had been what, the Bowery Hotel before that, and then a glass rod company, because I found some boxes of glass rods, like towel rack glass rods. I
it.
found boxes of those in there still.
Really?
Really,
Wow.
yeah.
It looks like the perfect artist loft to now, is this where you started writing and creating?
Yes, I did, because I was starting. I came from Detroit, I still need I wanted my degree. I wanted to finish that. So I got into graduate school at the City University of New York in their really cool psychology program, really maverick program in environmental psychology, the design of space and how it affects behavior.
Ooh, I
Right.
love that.
Really cool, really cool. So anyway, I needed money. I had walked out of the house, so I it was really, I got hit. Well, I got hit by a car. This is before
Oh,
I got to the loft, while I was riding my bike. And this was on Christopher Street, believe it or not. And the guy who lived downstairs said, "You can't just lie there in that neck brace and stuff like you've been doing for months." He said, "You could write." And I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Yeah." And he introduced me to a really good agent, Richard Curtis, still alive. And I started writing. He said, "Well, so write romances." And I started writing romances to pay my way through graduate school. That's
wow. So were you under a different name, a ghost?
all of them, all of them. That was pretty stupid, because I should have at least kept one pseudonym to build up a following. But remember, that was a different time. There wasn't the thing like today, where people say, "Oh, what's your platform? How many followers do you have?" Yada yada. I said to my agent, I said, "No, I have a professional career to protect." It's like it was what, my second year of graduate school.
Oh,
Okay.
that's amazing. So, okay, so can you share a few of those titles?
Oh boy, if I can remember them. Woman of New Orleans, Gold Digger.
Gold Digger. Okay, that's good. That's a couple right there. So that will
Yeah.
get everybody's appetite, a little bit of a taste there. That's so wonderful. And so, Roberta, let's talk a little bit about your films. You on the second screen here, we've got F-Stop, Heat Beat, and Hair Z. Now, I have seen these and they are incredible. I mean, you've ridden motorcycles, have you smoked cigars?
No,
Oh, okay.
cigarettes has been
Cigarettes.
my downfall, but no.
So cool. You've had a wonderful lifestyle traveling around. You've done a lot of great things, and I believe you've had a blissful life. So
Touch wood.
let's talk about your wonderful F-Stop. Where did it come up from? How did you think of the idea? What's it about?
Uh, F-Stop, the film, is an adaptation of my book, The Assistants of Vice. And The Assistants of Vice was a total break. I guess it was my first break from writing historical novels, because The Assistants of Vice and F-Stop is about the downtown New York scene in the early 1980s, late 1970s, early 1980s, and that's when I was riding a motorcycle, living in the loft, living down in Soho before Soho was, rife with like really cool galleries. It was, funkier galleries at that time, although OK Harris was open and stuff like that. So I wrote about that, and I always make fun of that time by saying, well, that's when cocaine wasn't addictive, like we thought, yeah, great. And they would deliver drugs to you wherever you were, at a club or anything. And AIDS had not yet started. And I think that was the big thing. And I wrote that book to talk about my life as a woman alone, running around and enjoying the scene, hitting the galleries, hitting the clubs, picking people up and dropping them, doing all of that. And then it starts, the first mention, although I don't mention him because, and this is part of the transformation, I've hidden in my books. So, and that's part of the pseudonym thing. And even The Assistants of Vice in its first edition was with a pseudonym, Rosalind Dane. I kept my initials the same, RD. The second edition now is under my name. And in that book, there was the beginning of AIDS. And my friend Sam Wagstaff, who I didn't name in F-Stop, and who I just, glossed over and would not talk about. But that was about that time, and though living in the loft before things got horrible. And it was before he passed, well, just when he passed away, I finished the book and didn't put much in it about how much that affected me. When friends go, even though he was older, it's not like, what we're expecting. Again, the images we see on television and in movies, it's like, oh, wow, this is a friend, this is not a mother or grandmother or whatever. At least for me, that made a huge difference. It was like,
Absolutely. And you mentioned Sam. Now, was that the same Sam that you were writing a book about with Robert Mapplethorpe? Can you share a little bit about that with us?
yes, a little. I met Sam the same year he met Robert Mapplethorpe in his loft. He was just up the street. He had a loft on the Bowery and Bond Street. I was on the Bowery and Delancey Street. A nice grimy panhandler walk up to his place. And it's funny because my friend at the time who knew him, and he had done a favor for her in her work. She was a sculptor. She said, don't talk to him. Don't only speak if you're spoken to. It's like, he's a curator. He can, I'm like, okay, I won't say anything. And like, don't talk about your books. You can say you're in graduate school. Don't say you write those romances. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
So we get to Sam's loft, and there he is, this tall, handsome, I mean, like movie star handsome, patrician guy. You can see with those chiseled looks, padding around his loft with holes in his socks. I'm like, oh, okay. And Robert Mapplethorpe was there, a young, skinny guy wearing a horrible skull bracelet that he wanted to redo. And that's why Sam had invited us, because my girlfriend at the time was a metal sculptor. So And it's funny, she started talking to Robert. Sam and I just hit it off from the beginning. And he said, well, what is it you do? He said in his deep baritone. I said, well, I'm going to school. And I saw her look at me. I said, and I write romances. And he was immediately intrigued. He said, well, how do you find out that? I said, well, the research is really cool. And then we started talking about that, how, if you're writing about Matthew Brady's studio down on Leonard Street in New York, what was going on at that time? Well, bands of roving pigs were the New York sanitation department at that time, to clear up the streets and stuff. So we immediately, and that's how it started. I would tell him what I found out, and we'd share that. He had a voluminous memory. So that's how that started. And I knew Robert, of course, through him for years, until I knew them for 15 years until they both were destroyed by AIDS.
I'm so sorry about that, Roberta. And let's talk a little bit about AIDS. Did you want to touch a little bit about AIDS and how it is now? Is there improvements in it? And what's your opinion of it, Roberta?
It seemed, well, now with all the, they've got PrEP and all the other medications. It seems to be a quiescence with that. It seems to be certainly not like the days before when, back in 1982, 83, 85, it was like, did you hear? And you didn't even have to hear anything beyond that, because if you met someone on the street, a friend on the street, and they started a sentence with, did you hear? You knew it was going to be somebody had died. And in those days, when AZT first came out, you could tell the guys who were on AZT, because they'd always get these weird, at least the ones I knew, got these weird rosy cheek AZT stuff. And
wow.
It was weird. And then, they were
so scary, and such a time in history. And I hope we have advanced with medicine for that, so that it is shrunk and it is not as prevalent as it once was. But you really were on the front lines there, seeing it all, weren't you?
Yeah, it was at the beginning. And, don't forget, at that time, you didn't admit even that you knew someone who had AIDS, or that you were there. It was a very weird time. It isn't like now, someone says they have COVID. It's like, oh, poor you, you've got COVID.
Yeah.
If you said to someone, you got AIDS, it's like, don't touch me. Funeral homes would not bury guys with it. Some funeral homes would not take them. And Sam, when he got sick, he wanted no one to know. And there was like 4 of us in the group who knew how sick he was and that he was sick at all. And it wasn't until later Robert was much more open about it. But Sam didn't want anyone to know. Of course, people guessed. But it made it hard. And for my life, because there's few of us who knew, I didn't take care of, I didn't do daily caretaking stuff, but things like, I'd call in the morning, or he would call me. It's like, yo, Sam, what do you need to, what do you feel like eating? Anything I can bring over? And his voice got very long, very labored. It was very difficult for him. He'd say, bring, and finally he couldn't get it out. So I would, on my bicycle, I'd hop and buy an assortment of whatever, from Mississippi mud pie to ginger from Chinatown, and just bring. And he'd be like a kid, like going through the bags with his fingers, in the bags. Oh, these are nice.
Oh my gosh, you brought such joy to him in those moments. And thank you, Roberta, for being there for him and with him. And I would love to get a bag of goodies from Roberta. Anybody would. Look at you, you're beautiful and you're gorgeous, and what a wonderful friend all the way you are, Roberta. So thank you so much for that. Roberta, did you write a book? Is there a book that you're writing on? Will it be available in the future?
Yes, I finally, after 30 years, wrote about that time with Sam and what he went through and what I went through and what he asked me to do, the promises I made to him at the end. Now, when I first wrote a copy, or a draft, whatever, of this book, back in, Sam passed away in 1987. So in like 1989, I wrote it and I gave it to my new agent then at the time. And she said, well, this is interesting, but you have to name names. And I'm like, no. She said, no, you have to tell who these people are. You can't just have it as a roman à clef. I said, I can't do that. I said, I won't do it because it would have invaded Sam's privacy. It was too raw for me. Patricia Marisroe wrote a book about Robert Mapplethorpe's biography. And Robert had put me on his list and gave it to Patricia as people to interview. I didn't even talk to her. She called me up and I said, I can't talk. Because I felt like I knew too much about things that had gone down right at the end when there were the four. There was Robert, Jim Nelson, Sam's live-in lover that Robert had sent to him, me, and Anne Ehrenkrantz, who is a museum docent, and just a couple of other people who knew what was going on. 6 of us maybe, and I couldn't say. Sam asked me to destroy photographs at the end, and I didn't want to talk about that, and I still don't want to talk about it. Yeah. So anyway, that was okay. So I'm sorry, a roundabout way of saying I did that first draft. She wanted me to name names, my agent at the time, and I wouldn't do it. Finally, after 30 years, I'm doing it. And even at that, it's taking me forever to do this.
I can't wait to read it. I want to buy it. Can I buy one of the first copies, Roberta? I can't wait to read it.
Thank you, of course.
Yeah. And speaking of your great books, I want to interject here, but in your while we're talking about your films, I got this one, Invisible Soft Return. I recommend this. Everybody pick up a copy. You can get it at robertadegnore.com or on amazon.com. It's a great technology, that's all I'm going to say, kind of story, and it'll grip you. You're going to love it. And then also Until You See Me. This is also an amazing read, and you write so beautifully, Roberta. Tell us a little bit about those 2 books.
Gladly. I'm sorry for the first one, Invisible Soft Return, sat in a drawer. The manuscript sat in a drawer for a couple of years because I thought no one would understand it, because it's about not really time travel, but it involves that. A woman has to redeem herself, and there's a cosmic gun pointed at her head. She's a miscreant writer in the 23rd century. But it goes back and forth between her and Beguines, who are some of my favorite people in the world. Beguines were 13th century, 12th century semi-nuns in the Low Countries in Belgium and things, who were craftspeople. So we go back and forth in time. So that was cool. And that was up for a Lambda Literary Award. So that I enjoyed.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And that was influenced by William Gaddis, a really cool writer who has not gotten the recognition that he's due. So there's that. And because of its kind of layeredness and comedy I put in it, as well as drama, people dying, but in a funny way.
Yes, so true.
Right. So there's that. And then Until You See Me, I also have a script that goes along with this. Is that was one day I was back from New York visiting my parents, speaking with them again. This like years after I had left the first time, and I was looking through the paper, the Detroit Free Press or something, and there was this little squib about Winnie Ruth Judd, notorious trunk murderess, escapes again from the sanitarium in California. What are you talking about? Escapes again. It's a notorious trunk murderess from the 1930s. Escapes again. So I started researching that, right? Always loving research, whether it's academic or for the for the romances. And found she was She did escape from a lot of places, but I read all the microfiche at that time, all the old films and microfilms, and I put another spin on it. And it's the best log line I think I've ever had in my life. Why does a woman admit to a murder so heinous the body can't even be identified as a man or a woman's? Because it's better than what she really did.
Wow. Yeah. That's got mystery all over it, and I love it. That's a beautiful, beautiful log line. I think it's one of the best I've ever heard.
Thank you. One of the best. I've never had anything to compare to that. Thank you. Don't I wish?
You've got the top one there, Roberta. So there you go.
Right.
Got the top one.
Really. But it's I mean, and it's not based on, it's inspired by her story, because this little tubercular woman, right, married to a much older doctor out in Arizona for the cure for tuberculosis, admits to this heinous double murder. It's like, who the heck does that?
Yeah,
so I investigated, and I put my spin, and I came up with why someone would do that.
Amazing.
What's worse than murder? Yeah.
And you can find out why in Until You See Me, Roberta Degnore's wonderful book. And yes, and we're all asking those questions throughout life. Why? It's it's an incredible question. My dad used to, ask that. He used to say, why? Why are we fighting our German, because we were British. He was in our Royal Air Force. Why are we fighting our German cousins? They're our brothers. Why are we fighting them? So, such an incredible question. So thank you, Roberta, for that. I did want to go back to these great movie posters that you've got on here, Heat Beat and Hair Z. Let's talk about Heat Beat. And also afterwards, we'll talk about where everybody can see them as well. So go ahead, take it away, Roberta.
Right. Heat Beat, I made with actually Jutta Jensen, who is now deceased, and she was became after this film, the film curator at MoMA, at the Museum of Modern Art here in New York. Yeah, lovely. We were good friends, for a while. But that was cool because we filmed it all on Great Jones Street, not far from where Sam lived, and Robert had a studio, and Andy Warhol's studio was again on Great Jones. We just filmed my friend Kevin Scanlon, the glassblower, blowing glass, and just having a music track over that by Jerome Cooper, who I dated a bunch of years ago, from the Revolutionary Jazz Ensemble. It was incredible. The first time I saw him at a performance in New York, his hands flew over the keyboard or the drums, whatever he was playing. At that time, you couldn't see them. They were a blur. He was that fast. I was like, wow, it's terrific.
Really? Well,
so Jerome's music. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Roberta. So
that's use Jerome's music for it.
That's how it all started then, right? So
yeah.
So here we are. I mean, he had magical hands, basically, is what you're saying, right? Over instruments, and he had this gift.
Yeah.
So you had a friend who blew glass, and you can see a little bit of the glass blowing here. You can see the fire and all of that. And it's beautiful, isn't it? Because it's artistry, right, Roberta?
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny, now that you say it, I haven't thought about it in these terms, but these are two men that I knew with great hands, artist hands, one playing musical instruments, and my friend Kevin being a glassblower, actually, who can also, to this day, pick up any instrument and play it. So I don't just pick it up. You can pick up saxophone, hear a keyboard, incredible. So it was kind of a melding, and I, honest to God, didn't think about that until just now. It was that kind
of amazing, and I love that. So hello, Kevin, right? Shout out to Kevin.
Exactly, to my Kevin. Yeah.
And keep doing your magical hands, Kevin. We appreciate you. So he did the music for.
No, Jerome Cooper did the music, and Kevin is the glassblower. Jerome is deceased, and one of my, really, I couldn't believe it. I tried to find him again. It was like I saw the obit. It's like, that couldn't be the Jerome I know. And it's like, yeah, it was. And
so sorry about that, Roberta. That's why I'm so grateful each and every day of what we have here on the earth. So Yeah, I feel you and I get you completely 100%.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about switch over to Hair Z. That's about electrolysis. Is that right? And this was like a really big thing. I mean, I've had hairs where I've had to, you know, I mean, every woman has had a hair where it's come up somewhere and you have to
Yep.
remove it,
You
right?
have to remove it. Yep.
Okay,
Especially
so
if you're Italian, like me, it's like, forget about it.
I'm Italian. I'm Italian. I'm 18.3% Italian. So you're my Italian sister. I'm so thankful for that. And that's why I love you so much as well. But right, being Italian, you're going to have hairs, right? So
Yeah.
what does Hair Z do?
Hairs is about electrolysis. And you're right, from the time I was a kid, well, not a kid, but as soon as they started to crop up, my grandma used to just like, pluck her hairs, but my mother being a little more thick, she said, no, you have to have them removed. And that was way in heck back in the day. It's a wonder, it's really a wonder that a bunch of like little old Italian ladies didn't fry like and be electrocuted because they had you put your hand as some little old lady in some, in some walk up somewhere. This was in Detroit on Gratiot Avenue. Would have you lie down on a table and put your hand in a bowl of water, your fingers in a bowl of water, and then do the electrolysis, a thin needle with electricity going through. It's like, holy cow, this is
Wow.
looking very Frankenstein-like, really.
Yes, and this was big business though, right? I mean, a lot of people, did it have a lot of business there? Did a lot of
I guess so. I mean, certainly within that, the Italian family thing is, oh yeah, Aunt Gilda goes to whatever, and your Aunt Nancy goes to it, it's that. And I didn't think about it for a long time because luckily they stayed away, whatever, a few years I had stayed away. But when I was going to UCLA, in the film, I was in the screenwriting program, but I really, I crossed over into wanting to make film, and that's hard to do when you're in a big university. If you've been accepted into one program, you don't really do a lot, but I did. I snuck into other classes, Gil Cates's class and stuff.
Gee, that's great.
Yeah. And I remember, wow, I remember editing hairs with my dog, my Labrador, my white lab. I would bring a pillow for her and she'd come, we'd go in the editing rooms at UCLA and she'd sleep and I'd edit my little brains out. But what it is, the beauty secret that dare not speak its name, hairs. Get rid of that unsightly stuff. And there's stories, what I told her, stories I did an electrolysis school in Long Beach in California, compared with a woman who's done electrolysis in New York, Italian woman in New York for years. And just to see the contrast with the school is we're helping people out. This is really good. It changes their self-concept. And then Laura in New York saying, yeah, just rip them out. Like, really?
I love that too.
So it's a fun piece about a serious subject, I suppose. And really,
Yes.
hopefully I made the point, I think so. I hope you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it. Hairs, it's wonderful, and you're right. It does. I remember in one part of it, I think they say it builds confidence, and it is true because our looks, this world, we're all about looks, aren't we, Roberta? I mean, the fashion industry, right?
Yeah, of course. And again, it's that primitive cognitive mechanism that we have.
Yeah.
We see whatever that visual thing is in front of us, along with scent, and hearing and stuff, creates an emotional reaction in us, and
Absolutely. Absolutely.
it doesn't end. Yeah.
That's
So
wonderful.
yeah,
So how
someone's got long hairs on them, you're judging right away.
That's true. That is true. Yeah. So how can people watch F-Stop, Heat Beat, and Hairs?
There's links to all of them on my website.
Yes.
They're on the IMDb, has hairs, and it has F-Stop. Heat Beat is on, there's a link to it. I'm sorry, I've forgotten this.
Yes.
Iron something. Yeah, excuse me.
No,
A
you're
little
fine.
nervous here on camera.
It's there, and if people search for it on Google,
Yeah.
something will come up. And now you were the director on each and every one of these. Isn't that right, Roberta?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
did you assemble your crew? Did you have a crew, the same production crew, or was it you and your lab?
Me and my lab for editing, for sure. But with Hairs, it was a totally different crew in California. Eric Tregeser was the photographer. Than there was in New York. Oh my God, I'm nervous. I'm in a block.
It's
Um,
okay. It's okay. It's you. So you had different people
yeah,
on your crew. That's basically where I'm going with this. And so that's wonderful. So you were the director, and then you hired your assistants and all of that to support
yeah.
you. That's wonderful. And
Clarissa Los Reyes. That's who is in New York. Excuse me, Clarissa Los Reyes. Sorry.
beautiful, beautiful. You got it in. That's great,
Yep.
Roberta. And you did you edit each and every one of these yourself?
I I did Hairs. I had help on Hairs from Eric Tregeser. He
Great.
really did a good job on that. F-stop I did really alone and Heat Beat alone. So yeah, Hairs he helped. Although I did all of those privacy, those black eye shades, the blacking out thing when people didn't want to be seen. And I was very proud of myself because that's hard to do from frame to frame to frame to keep that black banded, in sync.
How
So
did
I'm
you
proud
do
of
it?
having.
Did you black marker it each? How did you do it? How did you?
No, you did it digitally, when you just put in the black thing and then you had to change the edit points for each frame. You had someone you'll see in the thing is they're walking in bathing suits. So I put it across, in a comic way across thing. They move to the next frame. You have to take that thing, that black box is going to stay there. You have to then reset it to follow the person into the next frame and on and on. That was at that time, that was a lot of work for me because I'm not an editor, but that was fun. It
That's
was
great that you did it frame by frame. And of course, and please forgive me because of course it wouldn't be black marker. How I edit it couldn't I don't use that, but
yeah, right.
yeah, so VFX and all of that editing and
Exactly.
post-production,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
where we do that. So thank you for that, Roberta. And also, Roberta, there is a 1935 black and white movie named Roberta. It's a black and white, wonderful picture with starring Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers, Irene Dunn, and Randolph Scott.
Wow.
Have you seen it? It's a glorious, glorious old Hollywood black and white, which I love. I love old Hollywood. It's a beautiful movie. Have you seen it at all?
Now, when I was a kid, I remember my mother talking about it, and I'm sure I saw it, but I don't remember a thing about it. But now that you've mentioned it, I'm definitely going to try to find it on Netflix or somewhere and watch it. I mean, because
Yes,
there's very few things that are named Roberta. This is not a common name, right? Not that.
right. It's
Yeah.
true. It's so true.
So I should watch that, and then I'll have to take Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers lessons, right?
Right. That's right. But I love that your name, that has your name on it, Roberta, because you
Thank
are a Hollywood writer and a Hollywood star in my eyes. I just want to let you know that
you.
because you shine so bright,
Oh,
Roberta. I just want to let you know that as my sister, I adore you.
oh,
There's
AJ,
only
wonderful.
one Roberta.
Wow, AJ, you're too kind. Thank you so much for this and for this opportunity and everything you do. I mean, I
Oh,
appreciate it
thank
so
you. And
much.
you deserve it. And
Oh,
you're so wonderful to talk to, Roberta.
oh.
You really are, and you're full of great stories. So you've traveled all over the world. I have to ask you, have you gone back to Italy?
Not since COVID, not since the lockdown, but I've been to Italy a couple of times. And that was funny. Before I went to Italy, my grandmother would say, because as a kid, the first place I ever went was Europe and into Russia when it was still the Soviet Union ages ago, and Africa and stuff. So you should go to Italy. I'm like, oh, grandma, we're Americans. And as soon as then later, after she was gone and everything, I stepped foot off that plane in Rome, and it was
Wow.
physical. It was like, oh my God, this is great. It just I just resonated with it. I could feel it. You know, I don't know if you felt that same way with going to Italy and being 18% Italian, if you have that resonance at all.
I haven't been to Italy, but I love Italian movies, and I love whenever there's Italy featured in any TV series, like The White Lotus. The second season is based in, Sicily and Italy, and I loved watching that. The music, of course, my one of my favorite singers, Dina Martin,
Oh,
right?
right. Yes.
Dean Martin's daughter. So
Yeah.
of course, it's just so a part of me. So I think I would have that same simpatico
Yeah.
that you had when you stepped off in Rome, and you really felt it, right?
Oh, absolutely. And simpatico is a good word. Thank you for that. Perfect for it. That's exactly it. It's that I was going to say ineffable, but you're right. That's a word to put to it, a simpatico kind of feeling. Just incredible. And the great beauty of it. I mean, they said, oh, Italian art and architecture is like, good grief, it's just
Wow. Where did you go?
overwhelming.
Where did you go? Do you mind sharing with us where you went in Italy,
Um,
Roberta? Did you
Mostly just Rome. I'm sorry, mostly just Rome, and then taking the train up through Bologna and to it was in Florence as well, but through Bologna and good grief, what was that? Was that the end point at that trip? I'm trying to want to get trips confused. It was just terrific. I love taking the trains. Of course, trains in Europe are cooler than trains here, I
Ye-
think. Anyway.
Yes. And how was the food?
Oh, the food was great, of course, except a few times when I asked for gnocchi. Gnocchi is my comfort food that my grandmothers used to make. And I went to one place in Rome, and I must have looked stone tourist. And they came out with a plate of like little shells. I'm like shell pasta.
Um,
And I'm like,
that's not it.
yeah, yes, gnocchi. It's like, oh, who do you think you're talking to? Come on. Right. So that was one of the only times that was weird. But anyway, I've been to Venice, Bologna, yada yada, Florence, which was terrific. And yeah, Florence, Venice, Rome, Bologna, someplace else. I've not been south, as you were saying, and Sicily looks fabulous. I've just not gone south at all.
Amazing, amazing. I did a little bit of a genealogy research, and my family has light eyes, so I think we're from the
Yeah,
northern part
yeah.
uh, of Italy. So, but fascinating, and I love it. I love talking about it. So, thank you
Yeah.
so much, Roberta. And Roberta, you've ridden motorcycles too. What kind?
Yes.
What was your bike? What kind was it?
I had a Kawasaki ZL 600. As my last one. And a white Vanson jacket. I loved that jacket. I
Oh,
wish I still had it. I wish I could still fit into it, which would be even better. But and what that Kawasaki, the ZL 600, was a Ninja engine. The Ninja bikes, the ones that were the really racer ones, we had to lean way over on it. I didn't want to do that. In a cruiser frame. So you could sit up on it, in a cruiser frame, like a Harley or whatever, same difference, but it had that big, not huge, but a 600 cc engine in it. Yeah.
wow, fabulous. And I bet it just purred down the street. And like you said, wearing that jacket, what fun.
It was
So much
great.
fun. Oh gosh, I wish I could have been there with you and known you even longer, Roberta, because you're so cool.
Oh,
And you'll always be cool, Roberta, because you're a trendsetter. That's
uh, no, thank you. I'll tell you one quick story. When I was teaching, then I lived, of course, in downtown Manhattan in the loft, way down on the Bowery, and I was teaching at Lehman College, way up in the Bronx. So I would ride the bike over to the West Side Highway and then ride all the way up the West Side Highway to Lehman College. And one time there was my helmet and stuff. A car was going to swerve in front of me. I screamed so loud through my closed helmet. The guy in the next car over here, like I could tell he heard me. He turned around. It was like I thought I was a goner.
My gosh. And so basically you were screaming for your life, right? To
Yeah,
save your
yeah, I
life.
thought that
And
was
you
it.
did.
Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
so you've conquered it already, Roberta. Now we know the secret. Now we know how to do it.
One hopes. Yeah, right.
Amazing. That's wonderful. Well, if I'd love people to check out robertadegnore.com and they can see that white jacket and you on your motorcycle.
That's right.
A great picture there. So Roberta, the time has flown by and we're going to have to start wrapping it up. I'm so sorry, but if you wanted to share a special story or a shout out, I'd like to give you that opportunity. Then we're going to do our heart messages. So over to you, Roberta. Do you have a special shout out or something you'd like to share?
Um, just something, just the last thing on the motorcycle thing. Not only was it was sexy and fun. That's, great. But also it was that feeling of competence, this dangerous competence
Yeah.
that you've conquered, that sense of control. And that goes along with what I was going to say about my transformation of hiding myself in under a bunch of pseudonyms and hiding in characters in books. What I've come to now with support of people like you and with Yvette Vargas and people there who have confidence in me, I feel I can expose myself a little more. I don't mean that in a bad way. So that's why I'm writing more essays on Substack and putting myself into books, or being able to finish that memoir now that really talks about me instead of hiding Sam or Robert as characters and not hiding me as a character. And that's been a long time coming. You think I would have learned that some years before this, as most people do. But
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So, so true. And I loved what you said about that, Roberta. Be who you are, right? Live who you are authentically. And I do want to say a very special thank you to Yvette Vargas because it was because of Yvette. Yvette, we love you. It's because of you, Yvette, that I met Roberta. So thanks to you very, very much, our beautiful sister, Yvette Vargas of New Hollywood. Um, Roberta, how can people support you? How can they buy your books? How can they get in contact with you? It's robertadegnore.com. Is that right?
Yes, that's the website. And then there's the God, I've forgotten which address is on the website. There's an email address on the website. I think it's rpdegnore at gmail.com. Yeah, that's it. That's easy enough. Sorry,
Beautiful,
but
beautiful.
it's there. And also, I know what I should mention. I've been doing recently, and again, through Yvette, getting me to some really lovely people. I've been doing Instagrams and TikToks and YouTube shorts that have been doing. I'm blown away.
They're
One has gone.
taking off. They're taking
Really, it's
off.
got a couple have gone viral already, and I'm like, what? Really? It's just so that
Amazing.
it's meant so much to have validation and support because, like all of us, it's like, am I good enough? Do I fit in? Does anybody care? Is anybody going to hear? We all need that support. We all need that. And I didn't realize how much I needed. Yeah, I really did. And it feels good to have a little confidence now to venture out a little farther.
Yeah, so you're on Instagram and TikTok.
Mhm.
And those videos, they're wonderful. I love them, Roberta. You speak
Thank you.
eloquently and they're going viral. You're
Yeah.
very popular. And I'm so thankful that, you're here with me spending time. I want our relationship to continue forever. I think did I say that already? That I want the only thing
No, not enough.
okay, okay. The one thing I'd love is to have our relationship endure and last forever, the test of time forever. How
Yeah.
about it, Roberta? What do you say?
I'm up for that and for a long one. And yes, we did say this, but I wanted to hear it again. See, you have
Yes.
needy friends. It's really a pain, right?
Well, I'm sending you this and
Oh,
a
thank
big
you.
hug as
Thank you,
well,
Jane. Thank you
Roberta.
so
We
much.
love you so much. And,
Good.
and Roberta, we're going to do our heart messages. And what that is, every week, each episode, we share something that's important and personal to us for the world, how the world needs to change, or something that's on our heart. So each week we do that. I'm going to go ahead and start with my heart message. My heart message is, um, well, it's basically what you said a moment ago. Live authentically and be yourself. Do not, um, time is of the essence, and it goes so fast, just like this podcast has gone so fast. um, Be who you are. Don't be afraid, because there's always support and there's always people out there who will acknowledge you and recognize you. And Roberta, you're one of those who has loved on me and acknowledged me, and I feel seen because of you. And I want to thank you so much, my sister. You're absolutely, you're right in my heart always. So thank you, Roberta. Over to you.
Oh, thank you for your generosity. And that's that's difficult to follow. Fine. Now you're going to get me choked up and then say, okay, over to you. Thanks for that.
Here's a bright light.
Oh my goodness.
I've got an idea right here. I've got an idea.
Right.
I know one thing. Roberta can make it flash
Wow.
nonstop. Okay, over to you, Roberta.
Great. Okay. One thing I will jump off what you said too with quoting Elvis Presley, don't be cruel. But what I mean by that is, and what we were talking about before about the other, how we see people who look different than us or are the other. I think it all starts with animals. The cruelty that we allow for animals, we will do to humans.
Yes.
What did people say about George Floyd? Oh, they treated him like an animal. Well, the freaking point is you don't treat animals like that. You don't treat sentient animals. And I think factory farming and what we're doing is immoral, is horrendous. It's a Holocaust, and we don't want to see it. So Tolstoy said it the best: as long as there are slaughterhouses, there will be battlefields. What we do to fellow animals, we will do to human animals. So don't be cruelty spreads, and we stop it when we can. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm off my soapbox now.
Oh, it's great. No, keep going, because you're so right. The world, it's 2023. We need to be woken up on this. This is every part of every human being has a responsibility. And you're absolutely right. Animals are our friends. I believe they're angels. I believe they're angels on a mission, and they're here to help us. And, they have feelings, and they love, and they have emotions, and they have spirits. So we need to respect them also, just like all living creatures, right, Roberta?
Exactly. I mean, if you can, step on a snake, if you can, cut a dog's throat, you can do that to your wife, you can do that to your husband or your kid. It's not a far leap. If you can kill, you can kill. It doesn't matter what you're killing or abusing. It spreads. Abuse spreads.
And that is it's a dangerous path to take. And so we've got to put an end to it, right, Roberta? It's got to change.
Yep, got to change. There's no excuse anymore. There are plant alternatives. There's no excuse for factory farming. It's horrific conditions. Okay, I'll stop. Thank you. That's my heart message. We all be a little kinder to ourselves and trust ourselves, and kinder to the earth and to our fellow animals, our fellow beings. I shouldn't even say that, fellow beings. We're all in this together. This is the only planet we got, right? And we're destroying it. So, all right, I'll stop with the soapbox.
Oh, Roberta, keep going. We love it, because we need to hear it. And it's so true. You speak the truth.
Yeah,
And you speak it so well. And any final thoughts? I'm going to do it, Yvette. I told her that I wouldn't do it anymore, but I'm going to do a final thoughts. Any final thoughts, Roberta?
That I think that was it. This kindness extends throughout the world, not just person to person, to objects, to the planet, to other animals. So that's it. And friends.
And friends as well. Thank you so much, Roberta. And okay, so until next time, thank you, Roberta, for being a wonderful special VIP guest here with me. And I'm going to say au revoir, and it's actually arrivederci. Is that right?
Arrivederci, sì.
Arrivederci to my sister Roberta, who I love.
Arrivederci. A domani.
Molto bello, molto bello. That's
bello,
what you are. You're my molto bello.
Grazie. Thank you, AJ. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, Roberta. And until we meet again, stay in touch and we love you all. Bye-bye.